So I wanted to let everybody introduce Brad to everybody. Brad is the author of Living with Enlightenment, A Journey of Love, which is about a 25-year life partnership with Leslie Temple Dunson, a teacher of enlightenment and the profound spiritual transformation that Brad has experienced. Brad's core work is about helping people to awaken spiritually and to find love, joy, and inspiration during times of great change. Using ancient truth teachings, especially the yoga of the mind and spiritual psychology, he offers simple yet powerful practices for dissolving limiting egoic structures and for remembering our inner divinity and who we truly are. Brad and Leslie are co-founders of the nonprofit CoreLight.org. CoreLight's humanitarian arm, seedsoflight.org, serves marginalized communities in South Africa, including orphans and vulnerable children. And so after the service, I invite you to stop by Brad's table where he has lots of information about both of those organizations. And I'm so honored to have Brad with us today, all the way from his home in South Africa, joining us here at Temple Buddhist Center. So I think it's okay we can give him a little welcome. Thank you, Brad, for being here. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Victor. It's nice to be with you all. Thank you for inviting me. I feel very honored. I think I might get the farthest traveled award today. I was born in the United States, but I started when I met my life partner, Leslie. She's South African. We met in Los Angeles about 35 years ago. And then we started traveling to South Africa together in 1994 when Nelson Mandela was elected. And so if you remember that time period at all, it was a remarkable time. And it was one of the most profound spiritual experiences of my life to be there when Mandela was elected. But that's a topic for another day. So for today, the topic is Peace Begins Within, MindYoga for a Polarized World. And so I just want to unpack that a little bit. It's a bit of a loaded title. So let's talk about polarization for a little bit. I don't think anybody needs an explanation of what's happening in our world. We can all see, especially over the last however many years, 5, 10 years, the polarization has been increasing in an extraordinary way, shall we say. And I don't know about you, but most people I know, this is a huge preoccupation. It sort of fills the screen of our awareness at times, the polarization. And it just seems to be increasing with every day, doesn't it? So for me, what happens when I'm aware of that, it fans the flames of my passion for the practice, right? The practice that you all do, that I teach in my own way, in my organization. It's this place that we talked about in the guided meditation, this place of the core within, the witness self. And so, under normal circumstances, we live in a world of duality, right? The polarities are always fluctuating. And yet, here we are in this time that feels as though that is building to a crescendo of some kind, right? Can you feel that? I mean, I think everybody does. There's something happening. We don't know what it is, but we can feel it. We're aware of it. And so I used to say, it's as though when we take in any media, whether you read or watch or listen, I used to say that, the media is inviting us at every turn into fear and separation and polarization. And I changed that. I call it now inciting instead of inviting, because it's like we're being invited, incited to draw into that polarization and fear. And so what do we do about that? And the choice that we're always making is really about love and connection. I'm sure everybody in this room and most people we know, most of humanity, wants the love and connection as opposed to the fear and the separation. And so enter the concept and the spiritual practice that peace begins within. And I'm sure that that's not a new concept to probably everybody in this room. The metaphysical principle is that the world, the outer world, is a mirror of our own unconscious self. The outer world is a mirror of our own unconscious self. So I love that image of the mirror, right? Because what we see in the world is reflecting back to us something that's going on inside. And so the way that I like to work with this principle is, we change what's inside, and then the mirror reflects something different back to us. So that's the principle of peace begins within. And I think we can't really talk about this principle unless we talk a little bit about the ego. And I'm sure the ego is also a concept that everybody in this room is familiar with. The way I define ego is it's sort of synonymous with personality. But the ego is the lens. It's like, the lens that we all wear. It's the lens through which we interpret the world, we see the world, we interact with the world, communicate with the world. And so the practice then becomes making the ego as clear as we possibly can, right? And easier said than done. If anybody's done any egoic clearing work, how many people do that, practice some form of egoic clearing work? Can I see hands? A few people? Okay. So you'll appreciate hearing about mind yoga. That's what I'm going to talk about next, because that's what we do. But if you think about this principle of the ego being the lens through which we interpret the world and see the world and interact with the world, it's like that Buddhist metaphor of the glass of clear water. And then if you put a handful of dirt in the water and stir it up, it becomes cloudy, muddy. And this is sort of the nature of ego. The mind stuff is the dirt. And when the mind stuff gets stirred up, it becomes a very cloudy lens. And so then we're literally seeing and interpreting that which we've been conditioned into, the patterns that get conditioned into us from childhood, from our parents, from the media, from school, from our families, our friends, society in general. So let's talk about mind yoga a little bit. We're limited on time. We have about 10 minutes left. So I want to share, by the way, this isn't all about theory. I want to leave you with some very practical practices that you can do. And then we'll do a workshop this afternoon from 12 to 1. If it interests you, we'll go a little deeper into some practices. But so I want to explain to you a little bit about what the yoga of the mind is, what I call mind yoga. So how many people are familiar with yoga? Hands? Most people. Okay. So nowadays, when you hear the word yoga, you think of the postures, the physical postures, which give you great abs and glutes. But yoga is a lot more than that. The postures, that type of yoga is actually called hatha yoga. I'm sorry if this will probably be a reminder for many of you, but if this is new to you, if the yoga of the mind is new to you, you'll want to know about this part. I found it fascinating when I first learned about it that Hatha yoga is not one of the four main yogas. How many people know about the four main yogas? Okay, only a few. See, everybody, like we learned Hatha yoga, and that's fantastic. What Hatha yoga does is it prepares the body to hold more light and more energy for our awakening. But it's not one of the four main ones. And so let me share with you about the four primary yogas. Before I do that, let's just talk about the word yoga. So the word yoga, it means union. It translates, yoga is a Sanskrit word, and it translates as union. Why is that? It derives from the word yoke. Yoke being the collar that the oxen wears, and the farmer connects with the oxen through the yoke. So yoga is about union or connection with our own divine self. That's the purpose of the yoga. Any yoga practice is to help us to connect with our inner divinity and to know that that's who we truly are, that we're that vast, eternal, and timeless self. That is our true nature. So the yoga helps us remember that. So the four main yogas, one of them is karma yoga. You've heard the word karma, I'm sure. Karma means action. So it's the yoga of action, or some people would call it selfless service. Anybody who's ever done selfless service, you know that that brings great joy. It helps you to feel, grateful for connecting with other humans, and it uplifts everybody involved. So that's karma yoga, number one. Number two is something called bhakti yoga, which is, bhakti means devotion. The path of devotion might be for somebody who feels a great love for maybe Jesus or Buddha or Mother Mary or the divine in general, but it's a practice of love and devotion. So that's another path to connecting with our own inner divinity. It's through devotion. The third one is, I have to bring them back, come back now. It's called Raja Yoga. Raja means royal in Sanskrit. It's the royal yoga, and it's described differently, but just for our purposes today in general, Raja Yoga is a lot about meditation. And I'm sure everybody here has had some experience in meditation to connect with our own inner divinity, or you probably wouldn't be here. So we know that through meditation, we can discover that divine self within us. There's more to Raja Yoga, but in essence, it encompasses many different things, but especially meditation. The last one, the fourth one, is the one I want to talk about today, and that's called Jnana Yoga, Jnana. Jnana is a Sanskrit word. It means knowledge, the yoga of knowledge, or you could call it the yoga of the mind. So let's just talk about that a little bit. If you've ever read some of the ancient scriptures from almost any Eastern tradition, there's some reference to the importance of the yoga of the mind. It's as though what they're all saying is that the yoga of the mind is one of the most important yogas. It's one of the most important things we can do. And so why is that? It's what we were talking about before. The mind is full of that dirt, that we throw into the water and clouds up the water. So the more we can settle the mind, the more we can find practices to help the mind become peaceful and clear and free ourselves from our patterning, from our childhood conditioning. That is the path of Jnana Yoga, the yoga of the mind, okay? And so what I'm going to share with you this afternoon from 12 to 1 is a little bit more about that. But for right now, I'll just give you one little simple practice to give you a taste of how this works. So the yoga of the mind can be very much about balancing the polarities of the world. So for example, we stay in our witness self, that core of energy within us that we were talking about in the guided meditation. That is the still place. It's like the fulcrum of a seesaw, right? We truly are that witness. We are that fulcrum of the seesaw while the polarities of the world play out, the positives and negatives. And what do we do with polarity? What does the human mind do with polarity? Generally speaking, we run towards the positive and we run away from the negative, right? Pain and pleasure. And this is the constant way the mind works, running towards the pleasure, running away from the pain. And sometimes that works, but most often it doesn't work very well, right? Because the negative catches up with us one way or another. It's like the treadmill. So one of the simple little practices that we do is derived from spiritual psychology. Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychologist, he talked about holding the tension between the two sides of any polarity. And so that is a practice, holding the tension between the two sides of a polarity. So the way I like to do that is visualize that core within, or visualize the fulcrum of a seesaw within, and be that centered place. And I'm going to wrap up here. We have 1 minute. So the very last thing I'll share with you is one of the simplest practices that we can all do. I have found this very, very powerful for me. And that is, as we go through the day and we keep reminding ourselves, whenever we can think of it, of being in that witness self, when we come across something, a person or a situation that triggers us, that triggers some kind of negativity, triggers a reaction of some kind that we're not very happy with, we can always do this little practice. And all the practice is to name the thing. So for example, let's say anger comes up. So you would just say inwardly, anger. And then you do this next step. You say, what is the opposite? What is the opposite of this? So what's the opposite of anger? Maybe peace, maybe calm, maybe something like that. So that's a very simple way to find the center point, to find the witness self, which is who we truly are, to find that peace. So you would just say anger. What's the opposite of this? Peace or calm. And you can feel how that helps you to hold the tension between the two sides of the polarity. Another one might be, let's just say you feel victimized in some way. Something happens to you, somebody cuts you off in traffic, or something happens and you feel victimized. You might say the word tyrant, victim and tyrant. And then you practice holding the tension between the two sides of that polarity, victim and tyrant, and you find that middle place between the two. Power and powerlessness, that's another one. That's a good one. So we could go on. We'll deepen into this a little bit more.
Tell me,
Yeah.
Brad,
Okay.
here after the service, they can help visit you over here.
Yes. We have some books, and there are some QR codes for the event that's happening tomorrow. It's an intensive. If you'd like to come for the 12 to 1 workshop today, we'll deepen into mind yoga practices. Specifically, my spouse Leslie and I wrote this book called The Marriage of Spirit, one of the books that's there. And it deepens into these mind yoga practices that I'm talking about. There is not just witnessing, but there are 3 simple journaling techniques that we practice, that we teach, and that you can practice in the privacy of your own home. They're very, very simple and easy to do. And they're deceptively simple because they're so powerful. They're life-changing. And so if you want to know a little bit more about that, from 12 to 1 today, I'm going to share some little animated videos that I made. People don't read much anymore. And so, so I got the idea to create little social media videos. So for the last 2 years, I've been working with a group of funders from London who found our book and asked if they could help. And I said, yeah, help me turn this book into some little social media videos. So there's simple little practices, and I'll share some with you from 12 to 1. And then there's the intensive tomorrow if you wanna go deeper into it, we'll share more.
Thank you.
Thank you.